Thank you, Sarah. And I am going to swiftly pass along to John, I think, because he's the man with the questions today, and we're just here to help. So, John, to you.
Thanks, everyone. Hello again. For those of you that were there this morning, beard's got a bit longer since then. But um, right, so this session it's a double billing this one, so we're on for a bit longer, but we've got a lot to talk about. So I'm going to put myself in the shoes of a exploration manager for a junior exploration company. It's the type of company that I deal with every day through my work with SRK. So I know the sort of challenges that they have and the sort of places they work in. And I know the sort of um, challenges they're having grappling with big changes in the industry. So I'm going to take this opportunity as my being a hypothetical exploration manager to ask three experts some really tough questions that I'm grappling with. So I've got three doctors here: Dr. Cathryn MacCallum, who of Cezanne Associates here in Wales, where I am as well. So Cathryn and I have been working very closely over the last few years on the social aspects of mineral exploration. I've got Dr. Daniela Serra in Chile, who is an independent consultant. She specialises in responsible mining and Indigenous people's rights. Great to have you here, Danny. And Dr. Jocelyn Fraser in Vancouver. And again, Jocelyn and Cathryn and I have been doing some work recently on well, picking up on Jocelyn's expertise, which is changes to mining business models and creation of shared value in mining. So I can't think of three better people to help me out understand a bit more about how my exploration company needs to change. So yeah, I'll fire away. I've got a load of questions for these guys. Please do put questions in the chat as well. Hopefully Rose and Sarah can keep an eye on those for us. But yeah, I mean, I'm coming at this from the point of view, as I said, of an exploration manager who's got a small team, a limited budget. I'm trying to maximize value out of my my exploration projects, and there's all this chatter and noise about ESG in the background, which on top of everything else, I'm really struggling to keep on top of and to understand. I know I should be doing something, and I'm not doing it yet, so I think I need to get up to speed pretty quickly. So yeah, this all this talk about ESG and how mining's not doing well enough, this discussion that is changing or developing incredibly quickly, and I'm constantly playing catch up. So guys, what do you, or Cathryn, what do you think my priorities are, so I can put things or people in place to improve the performance of my exploration company and my team in this regard?
Okay. Um, I would say your first priority would be to take a step back and look and have a few discussions with your team. And first of all, identify what you believe you are doing well. What are your strengths? What are your capabilities? What's good? And once you've identified those, then focus on, okay, so this is what we're doing really well. What are we not doing quite so well? And then how could that be changed building on what we are doing well? It all sounds a little bit abstract, but I really think that focusing on the strengths and focusing on your assets and what you're good at from the beginning will enable you then to identify sort of, I think, practicable solutions for dealing with your problems. So, for example, from a social perspective, you may have something within your internal workings that you are doing well, but you've got problems with the community. And so it's a case of then looking at, okay, so how are we managing this internally? And then why are we not then able to translate a similar sort of relationship to the community? Is it how we communicate? Is it how we communicate internally with each other? Is it how we communicate with the community? So, I mean, it's very abstract because the example's abstract, but I would say very much take a step back, take stock, look at what you're doing well first, and then look at then how that plays out across the wider field.
It's really difficult though, because I've got my shareholders are just hounding me for results. So I've got to deliver on this. It's hard to take a step back and not think that I'm losing value all the time. What about you, Jocelyn? Have you got any ideas as to what I should be doing at the moment?
Well, I think Cathryn's onto something with looking at your strengths. I think sometimes the whole area of ESG performance, reporting, monitoring, and evaluation can be really overwhelming. So starting from a place of strength is a great idea. There are so many amazing resources. We've heard great talks here today and yesterday. We've been putting all kinds of tools and resources into the chat box. So that's the advantage of those free resources and advice. And I would say, look outside the mining industry. Really fantastic examples of good ESG performance is sometimes not within our own sector. So that's a great place for some additional ideas, things that could be transferred over. I think subscribe to news aggregator sites on ESG performance. I'm here, as you mentioned, in North America. So sites like GreenBiz, GlobeScan, Knights, the Smart Prosperity Institute. Lots of great ideas about how you can ESG performance. And then I think you just need to be brave to have difficult conversations. You know, from your executive and your board, you know, to use that money to put another drill hole in, not to build a community engagement program. There needs to be a discussion inside your companies about that. So that's just a few ideas.
That's great, Jocelyn. Thanks. And yeah, leading on from that and what I said earlier about my my pesky shareholders, my brief really is to return value to them. And yet what I'm hearing is that I need to put the best interest of host communities first, or at least equal with that. None of the other companies in this area that I'm working in are doing the same thing. And I feel that I'm going to lose an edge. Do you think that these days, if I really try to reprioritize my activities towards community initiatives, I could get an edge over the other companies here?
I think you could, and more importantly than what I think is the fact that, you know, participating in conferences like PDAC and Indaba and some of the other big mining shows, one of the things that I've consistently heard over the last couple of years is that as the large companies sort of abdicate responsibility for exploration to companies like yours and other small juniors, one of the things that they do when they consider their acquisition targets is to screen those projects through the lens of social performance. So when they do diligence, it's not just looking at the drill result, it's looking at your social performance, this idea of a social license to operate. And those companies that can demonstrate that they have good working relationships, and that doesn't mean no conflict. Sometimes some can be an indicator of a robust conversation, enough trust to bring forward problems. But companies can demonstrate that they have de-risked their project from a social perspective, they are finding a higher valuation acquisition. So
that's really good news. Yeah, that's going to make it a much easier sell to my my board. So thanks for that. That's and turning to you, Danny. This is as I said earlier, I'm pretty overwhelmed by all of this, and I feel like I'm using a lot of time when I need to keep those rigs turning, and I need to keep my field teams happy. I need some help. So what sort of people could I bring in to help me with this sort of thing in the field? I need people on the ground talking to local people in the best way possible, training up my geologists. Are there people around that can help me do this sort of thing? And that's my first question. My second point is that I've heard that there's a lot of free advice available in this sort of area, which is great. I never get free advice for my my geological work. Are you guys underselling yourselves?
Yeah, no, of course. I mean, first of all, if you kind of know that you and your team, you don't feel comfortable about interacting with the community, before going to the field, it's better to search for some advice. And there is a lot of, I mean, ways on the internet training courses. I mean, we are going to participate also in the end of the year in a postgraduate diploma that is only going to last 4 months. But there is a lot of from universities, NGOs offering different kind of tools and advices that will be good to search for them. And that's why if you start from the point that you feel like that you don't have a strong strength on working or interacting with the community, that is a big, a big step forward, because some people don't even know that they're not prepared of relating with the community, and because you are going to be the first people from the company being there, the first impression that they will get from the company will be you and your team. So it's key what is going to be the first impression that you are going to give to them. So in the meantime, if you have to go to the field and you still don't have maybe the knowledge of how to do it or what to do or not to do, I will advise you to first of all be transparent. I mean, you don't need to give to the community all the information, but if they ask you, give the right information, not hide from them what you are doing there.
So I need to make sure that
because
I need to make sure that my
honest and transparent.
So it's really important. It's really important, by the sounds of things, that I need to make sure that my team of young geologists all have the same message to tell to people that they're meeting the field. Yeah.
Yes, and then and that is a message that is true. Is the truth, but you don't need to give a lot of detail to confuse the people or so, but you need to start to talk to the people, not to hide from the people, because it sometimes happens that geologists don't feel, or young people, I don't know how to interact, so I better hide from them and try to not to talk to them, and then if they ask me something, I better not to say anything. No, be prepared and be honest. Be transparent at first place as much as you can, but that doesn't mean that you need to already tell them everything about the project. But to be honest and transparent will be the first step if you don't really know more how to behave.
That's really good advice, and I could see how it would help to build trust if my whole team is just simply clear and honest.
Build trust. Yes.
Talking of trust and social license, you mentioned social license earlier. The board of my company have really bought into this idea of social license to operate. I'm not really sure that they know what it means though. They keep telling me to get an SLO. All right, how will I know when I've got one? What sort of things do I look for?
I think you always know when you don't have one. I think that is for sure. What is an SLO? I mean, SLO is an informal acceptance of your project. So, when people are at the gates and they're complaining, it's gone. I think it comes back to sort of my first point, sort of, it is about the engagement. It is about the respect. It is about the transparency. I mean, we've heard lots of people, as Jocelyn said earlier, sort of talk about this afternoon. It is about how you communicate with and how you engage with people first and foremost. I mean, someone told me once, you'd always regard everybody as being the intelligent, uninformed. Just because people don't have the knowledge, it doesn't mean they are stupid. And one of the mistakes that I have seen again and again and again is people assuming stupidity and or confusing sort of stupidity with lack of education, which is a very good way to lose your social license. I think also in slightly different sort of to Luke, I don't think people are predictable. And I think if people were, I don't think social license would be the number one risk right now, sort of to the sector. I think it is the fact that there are as queer as folk, as we say in the UK, people are unpredictable, how they behave, they change their minds, they change where they live, they change everything. And I think this is why a lot of geologists and geo engineers and geoscientists in general sort of tend to have issues with the social dimension because it isn't quantitative. It's not like a lot of the environmental issues, which are quantitative. It is qualitative. It is in a constant state of flux. So in terms of how do you know if you've got your SLO, I think you know when you haven't got it. And I think if you put systems in place that ensure that there is an opportunity for dialogue, for deliberative dialogue, that there is an opportunity for effective communication, that, you know, if people have a complaint, there is a process there for a complaint to be managed that is open, transparent, and is accessible. I think you have these, and these are not costly sort of mechanisms. These are very cost-effective mechanisms.
That's good to know.
But what these do, they provide you with your social insurance. And your social insurance enables you to work towards achieving a social license.
Okay.
And I think also just one other little bit in that is the fact that quite often you'll see social license gets lost sort of during or just after the mergers and acquisition processes. You know, a mine can change ownership 10 times between development and operation. And unfortunately, for the most part, the commitments that are made get lost along the way. And this then results in sort of people remembering what was promised to them, but the new owner having no idea because there's been no record kept of it. So that record keeping as well, just those systems in place enable you to put the building blocks in place for a social license.
So I think you touched on something there that I've also wanted to ask about, which was to do with making promises and delivering benefits to communities and things as well. There's a term that I hear used quite a lot these days, which is shared value. I need to create shared value. So can you tell me a bit more about what that means, and how do I know? How do I find out what is valuable to this community, or what can I do?
So I'll jump in to take that one, since I'm the one who used to be constantly on the shared value soapbox. So I would define shared value as an economic strategy. So that's not to discount the importance of social, cultural, and emotional value. But when we talk about creating shared value in an economic sense, we're talking about expanding the total pool of money that's available, the financial assets or resources that are available. So it's not just about redistributing the wealth that's already been created through taxes, royalty, and wages. It's about looking for new points of opportunity to contribute to what Liz Friel and Rachel Drucker talked about, resilience. So how do we get there? Well, the first step is to look for points of intersection between what your company needs to be successful and what communities need for their own long-term sustainable development. We had a fantastic presentation earlier this morning from Maria Angelo talking about the Sustainable Development Goals. There's an amazing place to look for some points of intersection. Almost all of the topics of the SDGs represent something that mining needs. SDG 6, it's water. Anybody running a mining company is going to have a need for water. Communities obviously need water. That's a point of intersection. SDG number 7, clean energy. Opening your conversation about how you could build a collaborative partnership with the communities, with your suppliers, and with the mining company to advance progress on these shared goals. Then you're on the path to creating shared value. And it's a great complement to philanthropy and social responsibility, but it really does deliver something quite significantly different.
Yeah. I think also building on that, Jocelyn, there's actually the regional development priorities as well, understanding sort of, you know, I'm sure everybody sort of in this group have been involved in projects where the mine manager has always wanted sort of to drive one sort of project, or saw a project work in Indonesia, so they want to make it work in the Gobi Desert, and that's their pet project, or you have sort of they want to set up a tailoring to make the uniforms, and they want to do this and that, and end up creating sort of linkages plans and businesses that are very, very much sort of I suppose building dependency on the mine, as opposed to looking at what are the development priorities, and again coming back to looking at the strengths of the community and the assets in the community. And I think it's that it creates shared value, creates an opportunity to really to build on the values of the community.
Absolutely.
And their understandings and the values of the company, and finding that common place that can then be supported. And I think
then you can really play to the strengths, so that everything from their area of expertise and development. You get resilience much better.
Yes. That's great. I mean, I've got several projects actually in various different parts of the country that I operate in. So shared value in one place might be something completely different in the other place. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. Great. Danny, we mentioned social license, but I want to talk a bit about actual licenses, formal permissions for me to do my exploration. There's a really strict mineral law in the country that I work in. My company is completely compliant with all of that. So from the government's permission, I've got all the permissions I could ever need to go and do my work. And yet I'm still really struggling with people accepting us to come and do our work and allowing us into certain areas, even though I've got all the paperwork I need. I've got all the permissions from the government I need. It's the local communities that are really pushing back against us. So considering that the government has given me all of these permissions, I feel that the government should have my back a little bit and support me in this, and stand up for my rights as someone who's fully compliant with the exploration laws. What do you think about that? Should I just charge in anyway, saying that the government has given me permission to, or is that going to cause me big problems?
No, that's going to cost you big problems in the future. And something to keep in mind, like even though in the countries the law is maybe going below of what is needed to accomplish or to performance regarding social issues in the mining industry. Nowadays, I don't know if you have seen the report of the London Stock and Exchange. They already have set up that every new business that gets into the London Stock Exchange has to go through a really sound due diligence process. So now international standards are going very up, and many and maybe the countries are going below that regarding the environmental or social legislation. But internationally now, every company will have to raise them a little bit, I mean, way more. So that is getting, and I'm sure that will happen maybe soon in the stock exchange in Canada and other countries, because it's a tendency that is happening. So, and yes, as you are answering, I mean, your question, if you don't do it right and you don't approach to the community in the right way, and with and you don't establish a good relationship, that will cost you more money. And maybe the shareholders don't realize that in the beginning, but in the end they will blame you or any other team that was before. Why you didn't tell us that this was going to happen? So maybe you don't think that is your duty to, but in the end, when they find out that they will have social environmental conflicts that the project will be halted, then they will look back and they will see, well, who didn't do their job in the right way, and then they probably will blame the teams that were before. So I think that is a good strategy if you have a vision into the future. by knowing about that these things. I mean, social license to operate is one of the first risk in the business now. If you see Ernst & Young ranking that they do every year, you will see it's the first risk in the business. So maybe the investors or the shareholders, they don't realize that, but maybe you have to, even though it's not your duty, you have to point that out. I think so.
Yeah.
To make them to know that it's important. So to keep in mind from the very beginning.
So it sounds like it sounds like it's interesting because you mentioned the stock exchanges, because my junior company is planning to go for a listing when we get some good exploration results, and we hadn't really thought about what value a good grounding in ESG could do for us. But it sounds like we really need to start investing on that, even though the Mineral Act in the country that we work in doesn't really need us to. So that's some really good advice. Anything that reduces my risk and increases the company's value is really good to know about. So it sounds like there's some big changes going on, which we need to. We're playing catch up here. We need to start moving very quickly. So in making those changes in our company. So I'd like to ask each of you very.
Sorry, I was going to say something. That before I was going to say something about social license to operate, following what Cathryn said before. That also it could take you years and years to build trust and to gain social license to operate, but you have to keep in mind that you can lose it in one day. In one day. So that's why what Cathryn was saying, you have to keep monitoring and keep an ongoing relationship from the exploration until the very end, because it's not some social license to operate. It's not something that you gain, and once you get it, you have it for good. No, you can lose it in one day. One day. So that's why it's something that you have to keep in mind, and that's why it's more difficult than maybe to deal with environmental issues. So I just wanted to add that.
Yeah, thanks. So it sounds like I need to start really early as well. I've heard about this decision tree, exploration decision tree. That sounds useful for guidance. So just to running out of time, got to get back to my drill rigs. So very quickly, each of you, what do you think needs to change to deliver on this ESG agenda that we see today? Very short answers, starting with Jocelyn.
There's so many things, but let me focus on 3 things, and I'm going to give a what and a how. So first of all, I think we need to see a mindset change where we need to move from shareholder capitalism to stakeholder capitalism. Something that we've talked about. How are we going to get there? I think we need green swans and donuts. So a book by John Elkington, and Donuts, Kate Rayworth's amazing book on how to think like a century economist. Second, we need to change the business model of mining. It hasn't changed for decades, and society has changed a lot during that time. I think we need to build a business case that's based on value protection, value capture, and value generation, not just financial, but also social. And the third thing I think is we need to move from engagement, stakeholder engagement, community engagement, towards collaboration. We're looking to try and drive progress on big problems. They're too big for any single entity to address on their own. We need collaborative partnerships with communities of interest and mining companies so that we can create shared value and deliver the agenda of the Sustainable Development Goals.
Wow, great answers. You have to email those to me. Cathryn, what are your thoughts on that?
I think sort of building on really sort of what Jocelyn's been saying, and I think starting with the whole notion of collaboration, I think dialogue is a term that's starting to be used in the mining sector, but I would say that it needs to go one step further. Dialogue needs to be deliberative, that conversation needs to be there, and there needs to be a focus on different perspectives. Thinking needs to be critical, decisions need to be informed from a range of different perspectives, not just the bankability of a project, or the bankability of a project needs to also be more informed by the wider context. I think also, I think it should be okay to say stop and no, and to realise that a project cannot proceed. There are a number of projects going on at the moment, especially in Europe, which perhaps should not be proceeding because of where they are in areas of outstanding natural beauty or World Heritage sites. You know, that notion of something, the mineral being more valuable than the cultural or environmental value of the area. You know, I think there is a case, and I think it's wrong to sort of cloak all that in NIMBYism. I think World Heritage sites are World Heritage sites for a reason. I'm sure there are a few sort of people in Rio Tinto who wish they'd paid more cognizance for the notion of something being a World Heritage site than they had, even though they had all their licenses and permissions. You know, should they have done what they did? Should they have just thought no? And I think to have the strength to say, and to say no, whether you're a junior or a major company. And I think then finally, I suppose my final one would be acknowledgement that informal acceptance from the outset is as important as formal permissions. Obligations that are made, building on that, should stay with the project and not stay with the owner of the mining company who said it. If an obligation is made, it should belong to the project, and there should be some process or mechanism put in place that enables that as a compact or a contract to belong to that mineral resource, and it becomes a legacy issue. And I think that would then,
Thanks, Cathryn. That's God, getting some really good stuff here. Finally, Danny, what do you think?
Short. Yeah.
Very short.
Very short. I know we're running out of time. Yeah. Go. Sorry.
What do you think what would be the biggest changes you'd like to see happen?
Yeah, I would like to change the focus, not only to give more participation to the people, but to focus that participation in providing more decision making. I mean, and that will to allow that you will need to change I would say the culture of fear that companies have because they think that they give decision making or power or voice or are more transparent with the communities, they will lose strain, or they won't be able to do what they want to do. And I think that they are very wrong, but because they haven't worked with communities and they don't know how you can build a better relationship with them. So I would say to change that culture of fear and try to provide to the community some decision making as much as they can. And that will be key to build a good relationship with them, I think. And the other thing is that hopefully geologists, engineers, geoscience, people that work in the mining industry, if you could request or company will provide to you more training courses, maybe it could be very short ones. They're not very expensive. Sometimes there are free ones even, but give you the time to train you on those issues. Even I remember a geologist in a conference a few years ago, he was suggested that at the universities, geologists should have at least one subject about social issues in the mining industry. And that is not happening, not really. I mean,
that would be really useful.
Yeah, so I would say if you could, as a group, start to push for getting more kind of formal information about it, requesting that will be also a step forward. Yeah.
Brilliant.
Yeah.
Thanks, Danny. That's great. I'd love to train my team of geologists up in this sort of thing. So any help going would be great. So I think I've got to get back, as I said, to my drill rigs now. There might be some other questions that have come in from elsewhere whilst we've been talking, though. But in the meantime, thank you very much, the three of you. That's given me some really good advice and some good ideas to make some changes in my company. And sounds like my board will be pleased if I can deliver some value for using those changes as well. So thank you very much, guys.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Brilliant. Thank you very, very much for that, John, Jocelyn, Danny, and Cathryn. John, I'm going to now just come in the last 2 minutes. So I'm your boss.
Oh no!
Okay, so you've now got back to that evil corporate centre, and I'm your boss, and we've bumped into one another in the lift. We're heading out of the building. Okay, so you've got 60 seconds to tell me what it is we need to do to get all of this social stuff fixed. What do you say?
All right, boss. Well, first job is we need to hear from you. I need to hear from the board what your company's plan is, what our company's plan is, so I can really be honest with the people that are in the community where we're working, and outline, map out the future for them. And so I need to know from the board what your objectives are with this project. And then I need to be able to tell my team of geologists who are out in the field what that plan is, and I need them to understand why we're working in the ways that we do, and I need them to be able to deliver messages clearly as well, because you're reliant on us at the moment in terms of spreading your company's message. So I want you to invest in some training for my team, and we'll get these guys over from Canada and Chile and Wales, and they can come and train us up, and we'll end up with a much more I think it will really improve the relationship that we have with the community.
Brilliant. Well, thank you very much, John. As you know, that social and purpose and values are heart of our company. So, of course, get on with it, says the boss. Brilliant. So, ladies and gentlemen, I should say as well that John didn't know that I was about to ask him that. So well done, John, for creating an elevator pitch so swiftly.
I will also say that I've been a hypothetical exploration manager during this time. Some of the questions that have been coming in seem to have some genuine sympathy attached to them. So.
Brilliant. Well, thank you very, very much, John, Danny, Jocelyn, and Cathryn. Another fantastic round of applause to all of you guys. That was brilliant.